Okay, black women, I want to talk to you about the stupidity that is going on in this country with all of the chaos and the crisis that Trump and his people are inflicting into society and unnerving the shit out of everybody. And I'm going to tell you how to deal with it. And I'm going to also give you some information on how you can never be bothered by this bullshit again. I know you should like that. All right. First off, let me let y'all know that I'm going to show y'all a couple of books, right? And then I'm going to tell you that, well, I'll tell you about her now. There's a sociologist. Her name is Jennifer Walter, right? And she has been doing study, writing books and seminars and etc. over on people and their response to being overwhelmed by crisis or chaos, right? And then a long time ago, not too long ago, I shouldn't say that, but like in 2007, there was this other white woman from Canada. Her name is Naomi Klein. Kleins with an S. And she wrote a book, and she also went around giving speeches on a thing that she developed called the shock doctrine, right? And now in this shock doctrine, both of these women focus on when people respond to crisis, hearing stuff, seeing stuff, and they don't know all of the ins and outs of it, they get overwhelmed. And when politicians do this, like Trump and all his boys with the Project 2025 and 25.org and Heritage Foundation crew, right? Their goal is to overwhelm you, right? And when people live through crisis that is not normalcy, right? Not part of their everyday. This tends to overwhelm people and like just effectively throw them off their game and makes it where you can't respond the way that you normally would to a crisis if it was slowly coming at you like one after one. But when they throwing it at you, boom, 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 like he's doing, right? Like he did over 200 plus executive office orders in, I think, like his first week of office. It's to fuck with your head. A lot of that stuff, like I told y'all, when you sit down and read the material, read the history of America, you will see that he's not doing anything new. This shit has been done in America over and fucking over again. And then when you understand that a lot of things that he does is not going to stick the way he intends for it to stick, because there are certain laws that have to go through a legal process. Like it has to be voted on by Congress or changed by the Supreme Court for it to actually change into what he wants. Now, can it happen? Most definitely, because he stacked the deck. He stacked the deck with the help of Hispanics, stupid black males, stupid black women, stupid white people, and all others that voted for him when he literally told y'all how crazy and tyrannical he was going to be. So anyway, I'm going to let y'all hear her, but I want to bring something to your attention, and then I'm going to let her talk for a little while, because I have never really heard everything she had to say either, so I'm going to be listening for the first time like y'all. All right, so let me tell y'all something. When it comes to the laws in this country, right, and you want to go through the history of what has happened and how people got through all of the things this government did to try to suppress and oppress them, you're going to read this book. It's called The Color of Law. This book is called The Color of Law. Excuse me. I did not mean to drop my book, right? It's called The Color of Law, and it is written by Richard Rothstein. Rothstein is spelled Rothstein. Everybody should know how to spell Richard, right? So this is The Color of Law. Within this book, Mr. Rothstein talks about every law in America that was created to oppress black people and to make sure they never obtain the American dream. He tells you the process. He tells you what came of it, how effective it was, and what changed it, what made it go away. He goes through the whole history of it. Shout out to you, Mr. Rothstein. This is my favorite book in the fucking world. This is why I never get tight, right? This is called Dark Psychology. Do y'all see this book? I fucking love this book. This is my personal Bible. You understand? This is Dark Psychology Manipulation. This is written by William Cooper. Shout out to you, Mr. Cooper. All right? You are literally the fucking man for writing this book. Let me show it to y'all again. In this book teaches you every fucking dirty, nasty, psyop, psychological fucking trick of manipulation, tactics, and implementation. I can't speak tonight. To start or to put in place. How to use other words, right? How to make people fucking batshit crazy and upset and manipulate them at the same time. That book is the shit. And you need to read it so that when you read all these books, you'll understand everything they're doing in front of you. I got one more book and then I'm going to wrap up everything to you in a nice bow. This is Dr. Claude Anderson. This book is called Black Labor, White Wealth. Now, when you read those 3 books or peruse through them, any favorite chapter you want, you will learn the answer to never being shook, afraid, or upset by any crazy shit you hear on the television about, oh, Trump did this, he took away affirmative action, he took away Civil Rights Act, he took away. Peace be still, because the answer and the cure and the resolution and getting the shit back on track is knowing your fucking history. When you know your history, okay, and you know the laws and how they go, and I keep telling y'all this, and you know the process of this government in making bills, recalling representatives, right, impeaching presidents, what the Congress does, what the Department of Justice does, the power of the people, you don't get scared about shit. Because the ultimate goal is they want to tire you out to make you so fucking scared, so frazzled through chaos and crisis that you don't think straight. And you get to the point where you are so tuckered out and so burnt out that you don't fight back and you just accept any shit they give you. That's the breaking point they're waiting for. That's why they keep building and throwing the crisis at you like crazy, because they want you to break. Because as soon as you break and go, fuck it, I give up, I just can't take no more, I'm going to comply, I'm going to submit to what the fuck it is you're trying to do to me, even though what they want to do to you is your worst fucking nightmare about to come true. I don't give a fuck how tired you are, how frustrated you are, how stressed out you are. Don't you ever give up. You look at the shit, you see it, take a minute, take it in, go through the emotions. Wait 2 days before you have a verbal reaction. Go through all the emotional reactions you need, whatever it is. Write the shit down. Read something about it. The best thing I would suggest y'all do is anything you see them do, go to Google. Whether they fact check or not, go to Google, get reference, get background information about what they're doing. See if there was history on this shit done before and what came of it and how people changed it. That's going to put your mind at rest. And you know what else it's going to do? It's going to get that brain of yours thinking about, how the fuck can I push back against this successfully? And when everybody starts thinking like that, God damn it, you're going to see major fucking change in this country that should have been here hundreds of fucking years ago. Believe me when I tell you. All right, so that's it in a nutshell, right? For the wrap up of the books and getting you to understand. This is the same fucking thing that happened to England during World War II. when they were bombing the English people and Hitler was doing his thing all over Germany, England was telling their people, be calm and carry on. Whenever you hear this crazy shit, because they're using all the same tactics from history on us today, because they know the majority of us are not old enough to know history, and they're taking the shit out of the schools. So you're not going to know unless older people like me tell you and teach you, right? So listen to the elder right here. So whenever you hear all this crazy shit on TV, you be calm and you be still. Take it in. Do not literally react immediately. Stop, think about it. However you feel, let that feeling pass, right? And then you go to Google. Do a little research on the history of whatever it is they're talking about. Try to look up some of the law, some of the government references behind it, so that you can calm your mind and think properly. Because the way they get you off your game and they get you to surrender and you give in to what they want, which is going to ultimately hurt you and take away all of your rights and freedoms, is to wear you out. So you take it at a slow pace or your personal pace to understand all of this shit, unpack it in your head, and never let it overwhelm you and take you out. That's what you got to do. All right, so now we're going to listen to Naomi talk about some of the history of shock doctrine. Look it up on your own, okay? Naomi wrote a whole book and went around this country in 2007, maybe for like the whole year or more. And this thing is called Naomi Klein, The Shock Doctrine. This is the name of her book. So if you want to read it, you can. The author's name is Naomi Klein. I was wrong before. I put an S on her name. It's no S. It's Naomi Klein. The Shock Doctrine, The Rise of Disaster Capitalism. Now, mind you, we in 2025. Naomi was making these rounds with this book in 2007, trying to warn the people. And my girl Jennifer Walter, who's the sociologist, she was doing that in like 2004, 2005, up until present. That's another thing I forgot to tell y'all, and it's good I spoke about Jennifer and remembered, right? Anytime you're stressed out and things that are happening in politics are affecting you, always read sociology. Not psychology, sociology. Because when these people are doing things, they're looking for us to have a certain reaction and to have a certain effect on us. So when you know these things, people cannot fuck with you. What they're doing is they're trying to get you to your cognitive breaking point. Do you understand me? But see, me being a black woman, and America, racism, and white people in this country come at me 24/7, I have no cognitive breaking point. Okay? You can put me in the middle of any fucking place, a war, a fucking dragon zone. I'll make a way to get out of that motherfucker, because I don't have a limit. I have no cognitive breaking point at all. So you have to understand that is what they're looking for in each individual person, or the masses of people, so that they get you to give in, so they get what they want. All right, let me stop talking and let Naomi speak about her book, The Shock Doctrine. And when you get a chance, I want y'all to look up both people. Jennifer Walter, right? She's a sociologist. She speaks about how overwhelming people with crisis and chaos is the goal to get whatever type of laws or movements to become in effect without pushback or fight from the people, because you literally get them to their cognitive breaking point and they do not fight back, and you just roll over them with anything you want to do that will hurt them. And what Naomi does is Naomi talks about the rise of disaster capitalism, which is what we're going through right now. So let's listen to Naomi.
And tell you a little bit about, I guess I want to tell you, I'm not going to be able to lay out everything that's in a 600-page book. I'm not going to try, but I'll tell you a little bit about how this argument evolved for me and how I came to the idea of the shock doctrine. The idea that our modern history, our contemporary history, has been shaped by this powerful idea that in order for the pro-corporate forces to get their way, they need some kind of a shock, some kind of a crisis that clears the ground, that readies the ground, that puts us into a vulnerable state, at which point you can have what economists call economic shock therapy. That's what the book is arguing. And the origins of this argument for me came out of the experience. Marcia mentioned that the film that Avi and I made in Argentina. We went to Argentina after that country faced a very severe shock. As many of you remember, at the end of 2001, obviously most people in this country were focused, they had their attention focused elsewhere, but it was a major international news event. Argentina's economy crashed in an absolutely spectacular fashion. Yes, this was a country that had been the model student of the International Monetary Fund. They had followed the corporatist rule book. They had privatized absolutely everything. They had deregulated. They had embraced free trade. They had become a country that imported rather than manufactured. They had decimated their manufacturing sector. They had cut every function of the state that helped people, like education and healthcare and social services.
Isn't that what he wants to do?
And the economy imploded. Do you see? And the middle class lost access to their bank accounts. There was looting. People stormed the banks, pots and pans. Remember these images?
Yes, I do.
So we went there in part to get out of here, and we made this documentary asking the question, once this economic model has been rejected, what next? What alternatives will emerge collectively? Because in Argentina, people didn't respond to that crisis by abdicating power. In fact, they responded to that crisis in a very different way than what the kinds of models that I talk about in the book. They responded to that economic crisis by completely losing faith in their political leadership. The chants in the streets of Buenos Aires in this period was "Que se vayan todos," everyone must go. Right?
That's right.
It was you people
in America
who did
too. Everyone must go. Yeah. That's right. Except for Jasmine Crockett and a few other people.
I think they have a lot to teach us, actually. And right before the crisis really peaked, in the crash of the banks, there was already a great deal of disillusionment, and the government was trying to.
Do you see how when I tell you all of this shit has been done before, and when you know your history and some of the world history, you will know how to react to this shit and not let it play out the way they think it will. Okay? Now, this happened in America already with the Great Depression. Okay? I'm going to listen to a little bit more of her. Her video is on YouTube, okay? This is Naomi Klein, The Shock Doctrine, The Rise of Disaster Capitalism. Go watch this video, okay? Go read everything Jennifer Walter, the sociologist, has to write about people and how they respond to crisis and chaos. And how when people are overwhelmed by crisis and chaos, they do things that are expected of them. But in this case, what Naomi's talking about, shout out to the people of Argentina, because they wasn't having it. They said everybody got to go. They cleaned house. That's what they were supposed to do. All right, let's listen.
With the economic crisis by cutting more and more, imposing a new round of IMF prescribed austerity measures. And there were federal elections. And the candidate that got the most votes in those elections was a cartoon character.
What?
Named Clemente. People stuffed their ballots with cartoons of Clemente. And Clemente is a very famous Argentinian comic strip. And Clemente doesn't have any hands. And the idea was that because Clemente didn't have any hands, he couldn't steal. So therefore, Clemente made a more credible politician than any of the ones on offer from any of the political parties. So this was the context. And so people turned to each other. They said, we can't trust our political leadership. They're all thieves.
America, they're all
involved in this crony capitalist model.
They're all involved in this shit.
We need to turn to each other.
Exactly.
So we wanted to know what the alternatives would be when people turned to each other, and we ended up making this film about occupied factories, about places where people had been fired from their jobs, and rather than allowing themselves to be fired, they went back to work. It was the opposite of a strike. If you think about a strike, withholding your labor, this was people unfired themselves, and it's quite interesting because if you think about the tactic, the traditional tactic of a strike, it's not a very effective tactic if people don't want you to work, right? So the idea was the machines still work, the equipment's still there, we have the skills, we've done this work, we can do it on our own. So this was a really powerful moment, not just in Argentina, but in the whole region. In Bolivia, they had just thrown out Bechtel because Bechtel had privatized the water system and hiked rates up 300%, made it illegal to collect rainwater, unfair competition. And really, Bolivia, it was at the early stages of what ended up becoming really a national revolution that ended up bringing Evo Morales to power.
That's right.
They were in the
I remember this. I lived through this.
Brazil, they had just elected Lula. In Venezuela, they had just repelled a U.S.-backed coup d'etat against Chavez.
Oh, my God, yes!
In Latin America.
God bless the dead, Chavez.
But across the region, it was a revolt against what Latin Americans call el modelo, which is the model. And everyone knows what the model is. It's privatization, deregulation, cuts to government spending. It is this package of policies that we've all been living with. And it was just crashing in Latin America. It was no longer possible
crash in America
to impose
too.
These policies peacefully through free trade agreements, through the World Trade Organization, through the International Monetary Fund. It just wasn't working anymore. People were rejecting it on the streets and at the ballot box. So the idea for this book came from being in Latin America at this moment when the war in Iraq began. So here we were, and this ideology is crashing on the continent where it all began. And this is one of the things that I do in the book, is talk about how Latin America was the very first laboratory for these policies in the 70s, under the guidance of the so-called Chicago boys, the US-trained Friedmanite economists who worked hand in fist with the military juntas to impose these policies.
I'm gonna stop it there because she gonna start talking about shit that will get this video fucking banned, or my page banned, or they'll just take the sound off or take it down. But listen to me. This is shit you need to hear, okay? Go to YouTube. I'm gonna post this on my community page. Watch this video, okay? My YouTube page is Simply Stephanie 2, the number 2. This woman, as I'm listening to her, because I never watched this video, but I knew about her and her book and etc. And I watch a lot of different things, and I was on The Economist, and I was on a couple of other sites that I go on. And then something said, I just don't feel right about how a lot of the people are reacting to these things on TikTok. So I said, let me look into sociologists, right? Because they study people and people's behaviors, the way we interact with each other, so on and so forth. And I thought about, whenever I have crisis, I always think about different things in psychology to help me cope with whatever it is I'm trying to conquer, right? So that's why I went back to my fucking Bible, Dark Psychology by William Cooper, and I started reading some things in there that I'm very familiar with. And I also went and grabbed an abnormal psychology book that I read also with William Cooper's book. And then I said, oh shit, it's just like World War II. And it's just like a lot of the things that happened in Latin America, South America, there is no such thing as Latin America. So I thought about that, and then she popped into my head. And because I was just looking at sociologists, Jennifer, I'm not familiar with Jennifer, she came up. She was the first sociologist linked. And I started looking at her. I started looking at some other people, but I liked her better. So I went with her. And there's some more that I don't need to, like talk about, that I'm also still looking at now as before I did this video, and I'll go back to afterwards. But I want y'all to begin to start moving the way I'm telling you, because they're going to use fear, and they're going to use the way the human being responds to crisis and chaos against you. But you can change the way you react just by knowing more about what somebody's trying to do to you. Okay? So do yourself a favor. Check out this video. Google or read everything you can about the shock doctrine. Okay? Because it's important. And then read these 3 books again. Dr. Claude Anderson, Black Labor, White Wealth. I love this fucking book by William Cooper. Dark Psychology. It explains exactly how media, marketing, all those evil motherfuckers use psychology to manipulate and get you to do what they need you to do. And then for the history, so that you know that you're not crazy, because this shit has happened before, and you want to know why, and you want to know how to fight back against it, or how to make it better or fix it. You're going to read Rothstein's book, The Color of Law. And if you just happen to have any old abnormal psychology book at home, read that with dark psychology, and they will not be able to do anything that will shake you. You will see it for what it is. Your mind will get accustomed to registering what type of crisis is this? What kind of chaos follows this? What is the coping mechanism, skill, and resolution do I need for this? This is how your brain will begin to work. You understand? And you will develop no cognitive breaking point. Got me? Be well. Peace out.